Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How to Accelerate Your Cloud Native Journey in 2022. It's here that you'll learn 3 takeaways from Juniper's Cloud Native Transformation. This event is presented in partnership with our friends at Platform 9 and Juniper Networks. Thank you so much for joining us on the webinar. Before we get started, there's just a few things that you should know about the event. My name is David Davis, and I'm glad to be serving as the host. Of course, we want this event to be educational, and we encourage your questions there in the questions pane. We'll be doing a Q&A session at the end of the event, so keep your questions coming. Of course, we also have a best question prize to help encourage those questions, and I'll be talking about that here in just a moment. But first, I want to call your attention to the Handouts tab. It's there that you'll find additional resources on today's topic. Specifically, you can learn more about the Platform 9 solution and Juniper Networks. At the end of the event, I'll be announcing the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card door prize. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found in the Handouts tab. And then, as I mentioned, we also have our best question prize for an additional Amazon $50 gift card. Prize winners will be selected and contacted after the event. So without further delay, I'm excited now to introduce you to today's expert presenters. Welcome, Kamesh Pemaraju, Head of Product Marketing at Platform 9, and Ravi Ravichandran, Head of Engineering, Cloud Platform, and DevOps for Juniper Networks. Kamesh and Ravi, it's great to have you on. I'll first hand it off to you, Kamesh. Take it away.
Thanks, David, for that introduction. Welcome to the webinar today. We are pleased to have Ravi Ravichandran from Juniper Networks joining us to discuss the cloud native transformation that they've been through. As you plan your 2022 cloud native initiatives, it'd be great for you to learn from companies like Juniper and Ravi, who's gone through this journey himself. So real quick, my name is Kamesh Pemaraju. I'm the head of product marketing here at Platform 9. And today we will be talking about Juniper's journey through their cloud native transformation over the years. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ravi for a quick introduction about Juniper. Most of you probably know Juniper Networks, but why don't we have Ravi kind of speak to the Juniper Networks and their journey and their requirements for cloud native.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity for bringing me into this discussion. As I'm sure you all know who Juniper Networks is. It's one of the top technology and network vendors in the world. It's globally distributed with over $5 billion in annual revenue. Headquarters in Silicon Valley, been in business for a very long time, couple of decades. This is my opportunity to kind of shed some light how we did the digital transformation into the Kubernetes containers and Dockers in terms of orchestration and how we enable the digital transformation in the company.
Thanks, Ravi. So you've been at Juniper for several years, Ravi, and obviously, this digital transformation doesn't happen overnight, right? You have tons of requirements as you try to enable this at enterprise scale. Why don't you give us a quick kind of snapshot of what your business requirements were and what your technical requirements were as you started moving towards cloud native? Let's start there.
Certainly. So enterprise reliability, availability, and scalability are critical for any modern businesses in today's world, where we need a SLA of 24/7, 4 nines availability, highly scalable, unreliable ability to scale up, scale down, follow the sun model on a global operating model, right? And we have customers globally, and we need to have a technology platform that can scale and that can adapt, be flexible. You need to build this platform on what is called a flexible architecture, and you need to continuously adapt and have this upgrades so that you can leverage all the new features and functionality of the new software releases that comes out of this software, both Kubernetes and Docker. And given that So you can leverage this for features and functionality. It's imperative that you keep up to speed, keep up to date. And we also know that the challenges that updating your software brings its own complexities, right? And in a 24/7 business, you can have maintenance windows and downtime and those kind of things. So we need to upgrade seamlessly without impact to in the DevOps community and also development of products. So leveraging the innovation flexibility of open source is critical. At the same time, as we all know, with open source, it comes with the pain of managing the software life cycle itself because it's an open source, right? So every time a new features and functionality comes in, you need to test it, you need to validate it, you need to verify it. You need to ensure that it's backward compatible and it's making sure it's interoperable. And you need to make sure all the applications and tools that have been working on this platform continues to work. So it's a do no harm approach that we need to take on.
Yeah, a couple of questions, Ravi. Two things. One is, I believe your deployments are all on premises. Is that correct? Is that like a data center
That's
driven
correct.
cloud native platform?
That's right.
What's the motivation for running everything on prem? Or I assume you have something in the cloud too, but could you speak a little bit about your landscape?
Yeah, so in a journey, right, first thing you need to figure out is what is the transformation process in a way that when you build a cloud platform, it needs to be agnostic to the underlying infrastructure, right? So yes, we might have started in the data center, but I need to lay the roadwork in a way that tomorrow, when we need to run these applications in public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, I don't need to change the underlying platform, right?
Right.
So the being agnostic is the critical requirement here. And we wanted to ensure that whatever strategy that I planned or we planned to enable this needs to scale, need to run on multiple platforms, agnostic to the underlying infrastructure. And that's the key.
So is that one of the reasons why you chose to go the open source route, or what was some of your motivation for open source versus commercial options?
Yeah, so the commercial, having come with implementing commercial options in my past life, I wanted to make sure that we don't have much stickiness with the vendor, and where the vendor starts dictating which platforms they'll support, which public cloud providers they support. It's based on their priority and their business uptake, all that stuff, right? I don't want to be dictated by that. We wanted to keep it to make sure, hey, we should have the freedom of anytime we want to jump in or jump out of any of this technology stack, we should be able to do it. At the same time, we also needed some support and management of the new releases, verification, validation, ability to upgrade agnostically, and at the same time, ability to make sure this is all already tested and proven in a way that we don't have to go staff up an army of people to go validate it and verify it.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. With open source, typically, unless you are kind of engaged with the open source community, it's kind of hard to keep up with the innovation and all of the rapid pace of changes that are happening in that community.
That's correct.
So a couple of other quick questions here. As you moved to cloud native and containers and Docker, I'm pretty sure at the scale that Juniper is running, there are also lots of existing quote unquote legacy virtual machine based workloads. I'd love to speak about how you navigated the combination of legacy and cloud native at the same time. And we'll probably get into a little bit more of that. But what are your overall thoughts on, I like to call it changing the wings of the aircraft as you're flying, right? Because you're trying to transform, but at the same time, you have a lot of existing legacy workloads to deal with. How did you handle that transition? Or I'm pretty sure it's still transitioning, but
it's something that it's a journey, right? So you need to start from somewhere, someplace with a long-term strategy in mind, right? So the existing data center storage and networking and security solutions, they're all evolving all the time, right? So you have a legacy to deal with, you got the emerging technologies to deal with. At the same time, you need to execute in the present moment, right? So the mindfulness of technology implementation and keeping it valid so that it can scale and it can extend itself, that's the key, right? So the ability for us to keep open source, ability for us to keep up with the new features and functionality seamlessly is what is going to get you there, right? Because you're not basically stuck with a vendor platform or a vendor roadmap. You have the ability to take the changes in as quickly as possible, partnering with companies like Platform 9, which basically does all the grunt work ahead of us picking it up. I think that saves us a lot of CapEx, OpEx in terms of having resources and a lot of hardware lying around. Those kind of things is all avoided, prevented, and testing this open source is not the core competency you want to build in a company.
Right. Yeah.
So you want to rely on other partners like Platform 9 to enable it. So ability to run, obviously, global scale is also key into it, right? The legacy is one thing, but also how do you run global clusters? How do you upgrade Kubernetes and Docker on a globally without impacting the developers or the customers or the DevOps, right? How do you deal with it? So those are all the things you need to factor in considering it when you have multiple geographies present.
Okay. Let's switch gears here, Ravi. You've been in the industry for a long time. Prior to Juniper, you were at GE and other places, and you've seen your share of what I would like to call legacy architectures or legacy systems. And we've been through this journey, and it doesn't happen overnight. But if we were to kind of break it down into kind of four buckets, for us to have an easy discussion around: architecture, automation, reliability, security, and infrastructure. These are things that people have dealt with in the IT world for the longest time. But the way you approach them, right? The way you approach architecture, the way you approach automation, et cetera, is quite different in the cloud native world. Right. So before we go to the cloud native world, what I'd like to do is kind of get your thoughts on how it was, like as is, like many enterprises are on a journey. They're probably not all in the legacy world and probably not all in the cloud native world, but it'd be good to kind of talk about what the as is state was or is, right, as we're transitioning. What did you see? And we have a framework here that we use to just figure out, how companies can grade themselves on their cloud native maturity. This is an example of what a legacy as is state might look like. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you've seen, like in the architecture space, like tightly coupled monolithic apps, and what are some of your experiences with this? Does this framework make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely, right. Anything that you architect, right, needs to be automated to gain efficiencies, operational efficiencies, and anything that you build is all towards reliability and security, right? And then you need to figure out how do you get the best out of your underlying infrastructure and leverage your investment in CapEx. Right. I think these four columns certainly dictate how you think. Right. So in an architecture space, right, it's an evolving world. People are still catching up to microservices, and it's an art. It's not a science, right? Because microservices means that you got to build atomic services in a way that any changes to that particular service does not bring down that you need to restart the whole set of services in the software stack, right?
Right.
It has
Which
to be
is the way.
independent. At the same time, it has to be dependent on other services to do the rest.
Right.
So that monolithic is the key, right? And you're basically threading it down to smaller set of services in terms of microservices architecture. You need to have an orchestration ability for those microservices. You need to deal with the client server mentality that you come from the legacy approach that needs to be now clients are basically microservices, right? So now you need to figure out how do you write REST APIs, how do you interact those microservices with one another, and how do you keep it independent and atomic at the same time they are scaling,
Right.
right? And your ability to also vertical scaling too, right? As much as you're doing a lot of horizontal scaling in terms of your infrastructure, you need to scale in a way that you have sufficient power to scale up and scale out at the same time. And you need to understand the legacy have limited extensibility, and that's why we call it monolithic, right? You change one, then you need to restart the whole stack and take a maintenance window of X amount of hours and restore everything back, validate it back. In terms of automation, you can only gain operational efficiency only if you can automate, because that is your key to success, right? Anything you do once, anything you do twice, you need to start thinking now, the third time is not manual, it is automated. So that's where you need to start figuring out, eliminating all the ad hoc scripting, developed in my backyard scripting stuff, and look for more like a configuration tools like the Chef or the Ansible or the Terraform that can enable you to leverage those strong capabilities that are built into it for you to automate. And when you have a lot of upgrades and releases coming out of the container world and other technology stack, your automation is key to your success, because you need to complete your upgrades at a maintenance window, which is maintenance window free without impacting any of your users quickly. And you need to validate it and you need to verify it so that you're not down for 6 hours and 8 hours and 24 hours. Those days are gone. Right. And at the same time, manual semi-automated integration and deployment, you start from there, but you got to have an end outcome that you need to get this 100% automated. And make some due diligence in selecting the configuration tools before you start. It all depends on the skill sets in your team. If you guys are very good in Chef or Puppet or Ansible or Terraform, make that as a standard, invest in it, create that competency in your company. As to siloed monitoring and reliability, scalability, logging, those are very important for your troubleshooting, and also in the evolving world of service reliability engineering. This kicks in a whole lot, because you need to have a monitoring framework that can scale. You need to have avoid noise, right? Because too much of monitoring alerts is very difficult to troubleshoot. You'll be panicking on every alert. You really need to have correlation, aggregation, ability for you to have this framework and come down to a point of eliminating single point of monitoring frameworks to what is called a single pane of glass, right? And this single pane of glass is the final outcome, and that can come in from multiple shapes. You can integrate multiple frameworks into one, as there is no one single pane of glass that exists out there that you could just install it and run with it.
Right.
It's very important that you focus on it. Don't get siloed. Don't get too many monitoring and all those alerts that you have your team exhausted every day in and out. And that correlation needs to exist. You need to have a proactive, automatic, holistic healing, proactive avoidance of incidents, automatic healing. Those kind of things are also very important. So that way, if something is running out of a VM resource or a cluster that needs to be extended to add more pods or containers, you should be able to automate it. So that way you don't need a manual intervention, right? And that's where you'll address the reliability and security. Those two go together, because they are critical to the business and whatever you do in that area. From an infrastructure perspective, obviously I'm much more skewed on running, obviously, on a VM or a bare metal. From the perspective of containers, I think containers, performance-wise, they fare better on bare metal, right? And,
so are you running your containers on bare metal today instead of virtual machines? Okay.
That's correct. Yeah. So that way we don't have to pay another licensing vendor more cost, right? You need to contain the cost. You need to at the same time get the benefits out of your investment to the max.
So both performance and cost benefits by doing so.
Correct. And then obviously Data have data and app coupling with hardware is also key. You need to, again, microservices will enable you that.
Yeah.
Containers will give you the agnostic ability to run on any underlying infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously you need to figure out your automation pieces of it.
Right, right.
And
So
infrastructure as a code is key in the infrastructure layer.
Yeah.
And when we talk about automation, I'm not only talking about at the application and the tools level, I'm also talking about infrastructure as a code level, where you don't need 1 week to deploy a rack or a couple of racks of infrastructure out. You should be able to deploy it with one click.
Right, right. Now, doing all those things obviously has all the benefits you spoke about, Ravi. But if you didn't do this, what were some of the challenges you saw, let's say, prior to making all of these changes, right? So there are a few here that I mentioned that we have heard from our customers.
Sure.
Have you seen similar type of challenges like technical debt and maintenance? And you spoke about some of these things, but are there any specific things you want to highlight?
Yeah, certainly. So from my perspective, I think inflexibility, agnostic issues, stickiness to a particular infrastructure configuration, they're going to make your whole software platform brittle, right? It can't scale. You're going to build technical debt, and sometimes this technical debt is exponential. It's not even linear, right? Because you'll never recover. At some point in time, we need to start figuring out, do we need to refactor this whole thing or start a new digital transformation project or an initiative? So earlier you do, well thought out you do, see the big picture is the critical thing, and you need to look at 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 years of technology roadmap and architecture and how you want to leverage it. And you need to spend some time, couple of months on your proof of concepts, your technical requirements, what is the weightings behind it, what is most important for you, nice to have, must have. You need to spend all those time there. Otherwise, you're going to build a platform or a technology stack that's going to be very myopic, and you will be increasing your technical debt and constant firefighting day in and day out. Just continue to kind of deteriorate in terms of availability, reliability, and in introducing security related issues. And your lock-in situation will make it worse because you can't even get out of it. And as you would have seen in the past, lock-in with let it be a ERP or a monitoring or logging platforms or any of it. Those are all big projects. It's going to take a long time to rehash it in a new platform or a new stack. It's time that you do well spent ahead in before you start jumping into the how.
Right.
Spend more time, focus on the why and the what before you get into the how.
Got it. We spoke about some of these practices already. You mentioned loosely coupled services. You talked about scaling. In terms of automation, I'd love to kind of hear a little bit more on how Juniper is approaching this. Like CI/CD is a key element, like development automation, lifecycle management. Can you shed a little bit more light on how what specific areas of automation have you seen really providing you the ROI for your business?
So certainly the investment in the infrastructure as a code has certainly paid off.
Okay.
Right. And the CI/CD DevOps platform has certainly paid off, where we have automated it. We are able to build the pipelines. We are able to move the code from all the way to build all the way into continuous delivery or continuous deployment, depending on the application and services. And in between, in the pipeline, DevOps pipeline, we have continuous security, continuous monitoring, continuous testing, artifacts, build. So we have kind of built this pipeline and pipeline chain, and this is something that I've done it many times from my previous jobs to where we are today. So you need to standardize. You need to have a consistent CI/CD workflows. You need to invest in it to make sure that your DevOps ability to push code deploy code, deploy products, deploys into the production or staging, whatever the end game is, end state is, you have that ability to push as frequently as you want. And building this rapid, resilient app deployment pipelines are the key. And you have and I would certainly advise focusing on the right set of tools, and integration is the key to success. And that you need, and that too with the service reliability engineering catching up at the end after the DevOps cycle. That basically completes the software life cycle all the way from build to test to production and operate.
And in terms, so as people start planning their 2022 initiatives, Ravi, I mean, people are also thinking about what kind of team should I set up? You know, how should they be organized? We have seen successful companies like yourself set up a dedicated DevOps organization or a dedicated SRE team, or what we call cloud platform engineering. What advice would you give to companies about how to structure their teams, what kind of skills they need to have, and how they should be organized to be successful?
Well, organization structure precedes any of your architecture work or automation work, right? If you're not organized properly, it's going to be chaotic, right? And people will be stepping over each other, duplicating it, suboptimal work outcomes, right? So you do need a competency groups, teams within your organization, which focuses on some level into architecture, some level focused on automation, some focused on the infrastructure management, deployment, and operations, SRE, DevOps platform, DevOps engineers focused on it. And you need to define the precise roles and responsibilities between DevOps engineer versus a SRE. And that's key for that. And choice of tools in the DevOps pipeline is key. So you need these groups of competency needs to be built, right? And those verticals needs to exist, and the competency centers are the key, and the domain expertise is key in those areas, right? And container competency and those kind of things in terms of not only building it, sustaining it, managing it, you also need some level of development team which can develop some of the orchestration of this, right? You can't just take in Docker, Kubernetes, and storage and network and compute, and you put it in there. Those things are not going to run by itself, right? You need to invest in some level of orchestration layer that can orchestrate your storage allocations, network allocations if there is a need, compute allocation is if there was a need, along with how you basically provision your containers and the pods, and how do you recover automatically. All those, some of the amount of development work, that's engineering work that is needed, what I call as cloud engineering work. That's also essential to be part of this group. So just to summarize, as much as you want to start from the architecture, you need automation, you need service reliability engineering, you need DevOps engineering, you need cloud engineering and cloud platform. And I might even have 1 or 2 competency in the team for security. To ensure that that's also addressed from that perspective.
Now, that all being said, Ravi, there are certain things that you probably don't want to do it yourself.
Yes.
Like so the DIY aspect of, you know, heavy lifting of things that don't add value to your stack or to your business. And that actually brings us to, you know, we'll come back to this in a second, but I'm going to skip over this. But I think you made some key decisions earlier on as you were thinking about how to roll this out. And you basically had 3 choices. You had, hey, you know, you're building your competencies, obviously, but you don't want those competencies to be focused on non-value adding activities like operational Kubernetes operations, for example. Not really value add, right? So you could have done that yourself. You had the choice of going with commercial distributions from established vendors, and you spoke a little bit about this earlier for day 2 operations. And then you had the choice of going with a managed service. So walk us through your decision and evaluation process here. Why did you not choose DIY? And I know you ended up going the managed services route. Love to hear your thought process and how you came to that decision.
This journey started about 2 to 3 years ago, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I had to build out a DevOps platform along supporting product development across the company, and the legacy platform was having a lot of stability, reliability issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I could have just gone on migration to some other technology stack, but at the same time, the challenge also was that there was a ballooning cost for our infrastructure stack, which is storage
Mm-hmm.
and compute. So my strategic thought process was, how do you build a platform where you build it, and once the work is done, the storage and compute are allocated back, so that those are not like being entitled forever.
Got it. Like a
Right?
shared platform. Really, you're
Like a
looking for a
shared
shared
platform,
platform. Right.
Shared and reusable platform.
Mm-hmm.
That's one.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is that 2.5 to 3 years ago, finding subject matter expertise and domain expertise in Kubernetes and Docker was just next to impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And also cloud native orchestration tools, cloud native platform thinking, microservices development. How do you build a cloud platform in those 3 years ago? Was still early in the stage.
Is it still a challenge, Ravi? I think this is still a very hot space, and
it's still a challenge.
Yeah.
I think where the market is still evolving is still in the architecture and technology adoption phase, in the sense that, hey, we want to use it, but how do we go about it, right?
Right.
And that competency, you need a strong leader to think about it, right? Technology, vision, and strategy is the key, and that is blueprinting. That is very important. And you have any missteps there, the future is going to be, the end state is going to be different from where you want it to be. And that's the key, right? So we had to figure out in terms of what is the final outcome, how long does this platform need to run? If there was a new emerging technology that replaces this technology stack, how do we migrate it without any stickiness, without any lot of refactoring, right? How can I be agnostic to the underlying infrastructure? And also, given the challenge we had in hiring the Kubernetes and Docker expertise, how do I get this thing strategized, complete the proof of concept, and implement it in 6 to 9 months? That was the task that was there, because the challenges we had in the previous platform having a lot of stability, reliability issues, this was something we had to go move fast. So with that in mind, I had to depend on external vendors who do some sort of a verified validation of some of the Kubernetes and Docker releases, upgrades, managed services that we can depend on. And also the other criteria was it needs to be as close to the open source as possible. So that way, if I was to divest with that particular vendor, I don't have to go through a 6 months migration path of unraveling all the stickiness of that particular vendor's code and going to an open source. All those things I wanted to avoid it. So I want to keep as close to the open source. At the same time, needed somebody who would provide me with a managed service, which would prevent me which would basically help me not to go hire them 12 people or 14 people to do not only validations and verification of releases, but also manage, operate, and do some level of monitoring, and keep this platform stable and reliable, at least in the Kubernetes and Docker layer.
Right.
That is if you look at it, that is the interface between an infrastructure and an app. And if that glue is unstable, that is the container glue with layer, then everything is going to fall apart, right? So that is the reason I chose managed services, because the do-it-yourself, lack of expertise, lack of domain expertise, new to the area, new to the space. Execution timeline was pretty aggressive, and launch timeline was pretty aggressive. So that was eliminated right away. Commercial Kubernetes distribution, as I alluded before, I wanted to have a freedom of choice to migrate to newer emerging technologies in the future, and also not be stickiness with a particular vendor, and be basically told that, hey, you got to move up on a release or do this on a release, and we only support on this platform or this public cloud. I needed that freedom. So the second choice went away. So the third choice was an obvious one, and I think we have gained a lot through that.
So talk to us, Ravi. It's been what, 3 years now since Juniper and Platform 9 have been working together.
Yeah.
So if we were to look back and think about the benefits, first of all, of a cloud native platform, right? What did you see in terms of time to market or reliability of the platform or productivity? Just talk through some of the things you're seeing today, after having gone through this journey. And I'm assuming you are now trying to take this cloud native across the enterprise, right? Is that right? Can you walk to a little bit about your future plans here with cloud native?
Yeah. So the benefits so far, the strategy has achieved its purpose of that the container layer is stable, scalable, reliable, and highly available at the end of the day. And it's self-HA, right? Because of the ability to cluster, ability to have multiple nodes running. The HA is built into it, right? That's amazing, right? I don't have to worry about any of that in that layer. Upgrades, I don't have to stay awake. It's a blue-green deployment. It's automatically taken care of without interruption to the business, right? And the third thing is it's a delivery on demand in terms of if I need to scale, add more nodes, extend the cluster, and you got it going very quickly, easy to scale, right? And then obviously increase in productivity, right? Where I started with the resources that I had, minimal set of resources when I started, it is still the same set of resources.
So you haven't added any new resources, but you've been scaling though. You've been adding more and more.
That is because of ability to scale without scaling your resources, right?
Right. That's a key. It's a very key productivity benefit, right?
Yes. So because generally, as you scale clusters and the nodes and the pods, you scale the resources too in other areas of technology. Here, that's not the scale, right? It actually scales really well. And that has been very beneficial for us. And obviously the lock-in is a major area. Going from a futuristic point of view, obviously, the roadwork has been laid, right? So now it's a matter of extending wherever we want to go, right? Adoption is increasing, right? Because it's a proven case. Successes have been defined and met. KPIs have been met. So now it's a matter of exploiting the implementation to the next level. And that's how I would put it.
Fantastic. Now, if you were to kind of give 3 key takeaways, advice to the listeners and the audience as they start planning, I'm pretty sure everybody is on a different stage in their journey. Some are starting off like you were 3 years ago. Others may be, in the middle of their journey. But what are the 3 takeaways from your journey, Ravi, that you would like to advise the listeners on?
Yeah. So interestingly, the platform that we built on this stack is the only one we don't take maintenance windows, right? And it has given us almost 4 nines of availability because one, it's scalable, it's flexible, it's available, it's reliable, secure. From a platform perspective, it's met its goals and the outcomes, right? So obviously, uptime, service availability, it met 4 nines literally, right? And maintenance-free windows, upgrades, no zero impact upgrades, right? And also having a managed service means that we also now have more time to do other things
Mm.
on the platform, on the stack,
Yeah.
while the managed service handles all the monitoring and the logging and the alerting, and I don't have to go staff up a whole group. And the current group that we have can go do other things to scale.
Mm. In the last 3 years or so, Kubernetes have been pushing out new releases, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year.
Yep.
And you have now the latest up-to-date version of Kubernetes running in your data center.
Correct.
And you had nothing to do with it. It's just there. Every
there.
time it's there, the latest version is up and running, it's reliable, and you take advantage of the new capabilities that are coming out.
Yeah, it also meets the compliance requirements of N-1, right?
Yeah.
And that's also key, right? How many companies run software that are really old, and the security and compliance group comes and tells them, you got to upgrade, or you got to patch, you got to update. So those things, this things doesn't have the challenge.
Right. So one thing that we do at Platform 9, although when people think of managed service, Ravi, they think of a whole bunch of army of consultants and people sitting in a network operating center and doing things. And as some of you know, Platform 9 is a SaaS service. It's not like a traditional managed services company. So Ravi, wanted to kind of hear your thoughts. You could have gone with like an SI, like a service integrator or professional services company that could have done this for you, right? It's still managed service. But what did the SaaS delivery model do? And how has that changed things for you when you were thinking about your strategic options?
It's a hands-off approach, right?
Yeah.
From a SaaS vendor. That means that I have an SLA with you. I have an internal SLO, and I ensure that the Platform 9 meets it, right?
Right.
The hands-off approach meets the SLA. There is the support and operational capability from Platform 9 is always there, and we really work closely with the company, and we address all the incident reports if there are any, right? It's been pretty good from that point of view, and our own platform has come a long way, right? 3 years. That's a good amount of maturity for someone to run containers and a massive heavy workloads on a global basis. So we have come a long way. The platform has matured and scaled, and it's a software as a service. So that way, you're not having SIs come in and go through the grunt work of assessment, discovery, requirements, a whole bunch of it. And at the end of the day, there's always a gap between what has been delivered versus what has been requested.
Right. So from our perspective, a SaaS delivery model means that it's highly automated, right?
Highly automated, and also it's consistent and repeatable in the sense that we are not your only customer.
Yes, exactly.
The software as a service that Platform 9 is selling is same platform is used by many customers of yours.
That's right.
And it is the same thing. There is no that, hey, one for this company and one for that company. And that's like a shared service that basically attains maturity by its very existence functionally.
That's right. Yeah. And reliability too, right? We have close to, I think, 40,000 nodes under management now across multiple enterprises.
Right.
And we learn a lot. Like working with Juniper Networks has taught us a lot about how large-scale deployments work at scale with higher availability. And we take those findings and work it back into the SaaS control plane. That benefits everybody.
Absolutely.
So I think that creates, at scale, things start to get a lot cheaper because you don't need to add more and more people to make it happen. So it's really, what they call at volume, we actually can do it much faster and much cheaper than anybody else.
Right.
So I think we're almost at time here. Great conversation, Ravi, as always. I really appreciate your thoughts. One last thing I wanted to touch upon is we were talking about the fact that they will still be virtual machines, although you're doing mostly with containers and Docker and Kubernetes. There is this new technology that you've been testing with us called KubeVirt. And KubeVirt is actually a way to run virtual machines on Kubernetes. So you don't have to have multiple stacks, right? You don't need a VMware stack or some other commercial stack. You can run everything on one platform. If you could spend just a couple of minutes about your business case around that, what were you thinking? Were you thinking of moving everything to Kubernetes, or what? Just walk us through your thought process there.
Yeah. So as I've seen in the companies in the last maybe 20, 30 years, right? There's no one single company that has a homogeneous infrastructure where everything can run on one type of infrastructure or a software stack. Right? You will always be heterogeneous. At some point or another, you have introduced some technical debt in the past that you cannot get rid of. Certain legacy applications cannot be migrated off. So you'll always have need for VMs, need for containers, right? Now, from an operational efficiency 101, you want to have what is called ease of management, right? And under those circumstances, you need to seek a way where you can have an underlying layer that's common, which is containers. And then you can run containers, and you can also run VMs on top of it. So by moving towards, I would even say it's a part of maturity, right? After running 3 years on containers, now we would like to see if we can run the rest of it VMs on more containers, so that we have one single, consistent, scalable, flexible, secure platform, which is platform 9.
Right.
So that way you can now run VMs and containers on the same. And that is a typical maturity of any company that's been successful in implementing this into this kind of a platform and an infrastructure. And you just want to now make your operations management easy.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Just standardizing on one underlying layer, which you know is extremely reliable and available, which you've proved over the last few years.
That's right.
So it makes a lot of sense. So are you just migrating existing VMs, or are you trying to containerize some of them, or what's
some containerization and some migration.
Got it.
Things that cannot be containerized, you have to migrate.
Yeah. Fantastic. That was extremely useful, Ravi, as always. And I hope the audience will get some useful tips from this conversation as they plan their own 2022 initiatives around cloud native and their journey towards digital transformation. Appreciate your time, Ravi. Really great conversation as always. One quick thing I wanted to leave everybody with is we have actually created a cloud native grader. So you can run through a quick survey of 10 to 11 questions. You can answer those questions as to where you are in your journey, and our grader will tell you how you compare with your peers. So it'd be a great tool for you to use. We'll send it to you after the webinar, and look forward to having a continued conversation. And Ravi, as always, thanks again.
Thank you.
Look forward to continuing this kind of conversations in the future.
We'll look forward to it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Hey, it looks like we're getting some questions in here. Here's I think an interesting question maybe for you, Ravi. It's about how you determine which workloads to move to cloud native characteristics, since not all are suitable, as you were saying earlier. Some VMs may have to stay as VMs, others for whatever reasons, compliance reasons or what have you. What are some of your criteria when you think about workloads and to kind of make them ready for cloud native? Do you lift and shift? Do you refactor them? Do you re-architect them? What are some of your criteria for that? Ravi, that question was for you, I think.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a great question, right? That is the exercise you need to go through, right? There are certain services that you feel can be refactored, would run better with a better improved performance and needs high availability. I think it's worth refactoring and running it on containers, right? Then there are monolithic applications and services that are part of the software stack that you cannot run on a VMware and half in containers, half in VMware. You have no other go but to run it in the containers. Then you got to pay for performance. You got to basically paying in terms of your infrastructure investments that you need to make to accommodate the monolithic application. So it could be a hybrid, it could be lift and shift, it could be refactoring. So it really depends on the application and workload and the services. And also, I also feel very strongly that it's also dependent on the business workflow. If the business workflow does not is all in parallel, not serial, then you need to think about it. Can it be containerized?
Right.
So the business architecture also needs to be factored in before you even decide on the technology architecture, whether it needs to run on containers or VMs.
Right. Another interesting question here. I think it's more about folks that are still trying to figure out the benefits of cloud native and how they can convince their senior management on how to move, or the basic question is, how do you convince your senior management to move to cloud native? What was your journey like, Ravi? How did you convince your management?
Yeah, so it's all about, well, you always supplement your high availability with CapEx, which is infrastructure, right? Mm-hmm. In the case of containers and cloud nativeness, you're literally eliminating that. Second one, building auto scaling, building self-healing, health monitoring within the system, orchestration of services, balancing of workloads, geographic ability to run workloads in multiple zones or geographies. Mm-hmm. Those are all the things you can achieve it on the software layer, right? We all learned in our career path that, hey, when we heard that software will lead the world, right? Mm-hmm. Basically, you can do a lot of things in the software layer that you don't need to compensate with hardware. So basically, to convince your leadership, you are avoiding a lot of CapEx investment, and you're going to achieve much higher level of efficiency by having the subject matter expertise and developing software to accommodate the high availability, active, passive configurations, active configurations, auto healing, auto scaling, self-healing, failovers, high availability, all those things you can achieve it in the software layer, which is much cheaper than investing in the infrastructure.
Right.
So that should ring a bell to the leadership that, hey, we are now going to be more elastic. And we can even come down to the path of getting into a P&L model where they can figure out and say how much of investment they have made and come down to the billing, come down to the investment they need to make and what is the ROI on it.
Right. A related question here, Ravi, I think for you, in terms of how the platform itself got adopted, right? So you build a platform, which is great. It's reliable. It gives you cloud native characteristics. Your end users, I'm assuming, are developers and system administrators, DevOps people. I guess the question is, how do you actually introduce this in a way that gets you the maximum amount of adoption within your business?
The change management, right? Managing change management across the company is the key. So you need to become an evangelist. You need to take on a role of evangelist, showing them the business benefits, and also what is called experience that you're going to design, right? Let it be a developer experience or a business user experience or architect experience, because they're all used to doing a certain way of things. Mm-hmm. So you not only have to change their thought process and sell it and evangelize it, but you also need to understand their workflows and how they use it, how they develop products, how they deploy products, how they do DevOps. Mm-hmm. And you need to understand and basically come close to their adaptation levels of acceptance.
Right.
And all those things will take time, and depending on how big a company is, how old the company is, and is there an active support from the senior leadership levels, right? But as I said, only some things can be mandated from the top. The rest
Right.
of it, the leadership of yourself needs to kind of drive it, evangelize it, take on the ownership of change management, and understand the workflows and the business workflows and the product workflows, the application workflows, and design it in a way to meet their requirements and needs.
I think the follow-up here is well, obviously you're not going to introduce this to your entire community of end users and developers, enterprise wide. You probably start with a small pilot project or something.
MVP.
Yeah. Could you speak to what that experience was like, and could you give an example of what that MVP was in your case?
Yeah, so what you do is create a subset, maybe take a product or take a one business workflow, implement it, get people to sign up for it, let them use it for 3 months, get some feedback, develop your requirements from there on, and continue to enhance it, right? And also engage and involve subject matter expertise in those workflows, because the people who implement and strategize cloud platforms are not many times experts on business workflows or product workflows and those kind of things. So it's always good to be much more encompassing of other people into the project, so that they know that they're playing a role in this project, and also they're learning something new that they know for sure is a better marketplace selling from their own career point of view. What's in it for them, right?
Right.
You need to address that.
Terrific. I think we're coming up to time here. Maybe David, I'm going to hand it back to you for any closing comments. I do want to say what you're seeing on the screen, the grader that I mentioned earlier. Feel free to go jump into that grader. You will be able to see where you stand with your cloud native maturity and readiness. They're all based on these practices that I mentioned earlier: automation practices, your application architecture practices, your infrastructure, and how you're managing and orchestrating and deploying and provisioning those things, how automated you are. So if you take that grader, you can see for yourself where you stand, and you'll get a score. And happy to have a consultation with you guys if you want to reach out to help you with your cloud native journey in 2022. Then I'm going to hand it over to David.
Excellent presentation and discussion, Kamesh and Ravi. Really, really insightful. I mean, this couldn't be more timely for 2022. I know many companies out there are planning their cloud native journey. And so this is just the ideal topic for that. And we've got a lot of great resources, as Kamesh mentioned there, the cloud native grader, the Juniper case study, scheduling a free consultation to learn more. So make sure that you check those resources out in the handouts tab. I'll just leave those up on the screen. Those resources, the links are actually there in the handouts tab. If you want to click on those, that'll open up a new web browser tab or window for additional information. So we'll leave that up again while we announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card door prize. This is going out to Sarah Trukowski from Illinois. Congratulations, Sarah Trukowski from Illinois. We'll also reach out to our best question prize winner via email after the event. I want to give a special thanks to Platform 9 and Juniper Networks for joining us on today's webinar. I learned a lot. I hope that you did as well. For more information, again, visit their respective websites and check out the handouts tab. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.